Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. So what are we doing today? Today I am gonna give you one, two, three, four, five, six, eight, eight books that I think really will get you in the cozy mood. Cozy books for fall, that's what we're doing. Well, actually, they're not really that cozy, but autumnal reads. Autumnal reads. Okay. If you are new to my channel, then hi, welcome. I'm Shelly. I'm a bit of a hot mess, and that's okay. I really embrace it. And I really love books and reading. I love it with a devoted passion, and I bring that passion to this channel. If you are finding yourself enjoying this video, I would encourage you to subscribe, stick around, and without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. I think fall is a time that is associated with staying indoors. Autumn and winter, we associate that time with staying indoors, and an indoor activity is reading. So I think that even in the publishing industry, from what I've observed and what I've heard about, is that autumn, you get all of your heavy hitters. Your chunksters are published. The most anticipated books of the year are typically released in the fall. October, November are huge publishing months. I also wonder if we're gearing up for Christmas and people are more in a spendy mood, and so more books are released at that point in time. But fall tends to be a really exciting and book heavy time of year, and I think again it's associated with this staying indoors, the cooler weather, the change of weather. But as somebody, I don't tend to read autumnally. I am not a season, and I don't tend to read seasonally. I don't typically think that I read summer books. Like, I like to participate in booktube events, which tend to push me towards more autumnal reading. But for the most part, I don't just pick up autumnal books on my own because of the seasons changing. And it could be that I live in a place where the seasons changing, that process is quite mild. And I've always lived in a milder climate my entire life. And so that strong sense of the four seasons maybe is not as ingrained in me as it might be in some of you. And I think when I was younger, I was one of those like fall girls. Like, I was so excited for sweaters and boots and pumpkin spice lattes. I want to say in my early 20s, I might have been more like that. And as I've gotten a little bit older, I don't really get excited for that. I get excited for the holidays. I get excited for cooler weather, but I don't get excited for the things associated with autumn or with fall. So I would not classify myself as like a fall girl. No shame. If you love fall, you keep on loving fall. I'm just not one of those people. I actually don't really like pumpkin spice. I'm not all about the pumpkin things. I don't really like autumnal decorations. I sound kind of like the Grinch of autumn. But yeah, that's not really me. So when I was making this list, I'm bringing it back around to the list. When I was making this list, it was kind of hard for me to sum it up. What are fall books? So I have three categories. The first is atmosphere, fall atmosphere. And then now that I think about it, I'm going to actually recommend 9 books. So we have the atmosphere. We have mysteries. I think that sometimes, I think maybe because mysteries are adjacent to like, scary, like some murder happened, you have to figure out why. I don't know. I think I just associate autumn with mysteries. And it could be that because someone has died and you have to figure it out, that's like an element of horror. I don't know if that even makes sense. I also think like Sherlock Holmes, when you think about like Sherlock Holmes and movies and shows done about Sherlock Holmes, he's very, he's dressed in what we associate as like autumnal clothing. So there's some of that. He smokes a pipe, and that is kind of an autumnal hobby. So, I think of mysteries as an autumnal book category for me. And I have books that are like horror or horror adjacent. I'm a scaredy cat. I can't read scary books. And so my horror will be low-key horror. Horror. Let's just get started with atmosphere, vibes books. I'm trying to look at my list as well. Okay, books that maybe I have 10 books. Maybe I have 10 books to recommend. Yes, I'm gonna definitively recommend 10 books, okay? There we go. I just have to lean into like my scatteredness, otherwise nothing would get done, truly. I mean, if I was all about perfection, I would never make videos. Let's just be real. So if we're talking fall vibes, like the setting is very autumnal. The weather is even autumnal, and it just has this sense of autumn. I actually think of Donna Tartt's books. So we have The Secret History, which I think is definitively an autumn type of read. It is not a whodunit, it's a mystery, but it's a more whodunit. You know who does it immediately in the preface before the first chapter. And it's more about like, why? It's set in a college it's set at a university in like the northeast of the United States. And we're following this group of friends. And these friends are super snobby. They are taking classes on classical, like ancient classical literature, the Greeks and the Romans, and they're learning Latin, and they tell jokes in Latin. And it is about what is our main, I forget our main protagonist's name. Yes, Richard. We're following Richard around. It's in his voice, and so, you don't hear his name or like read his name as often because it's told through his perspective. So we're following Richard, who is trying to break into a super exclusive, super hoity-toity, the creme de la creme of academic and just life snobbery with this class and these friends. And he's trying to like get in the in-group. And so Donna Tartt, her writing is so atmospheric to begin with. She really has a knack for describing setting and what they're wearing, but also Richard is concerned with like fitting in with these people. And so he's concerned about like the activities he's doing and how he's coming off to others. And there's just something about academia because of the way the semesters fall, that most classes in academia start in September, which is the beginning of autumn. And so it just has this definitive autumnal feel. And for good measure, I mean, I really love The Goldfinch as well. And to me, both of these books have just a really great sense of atmosphere. This is more like this, The Secret History is set at a college and with these college students. And so it has more of like a solid footing as the setting. The Goldfinch is a little bit all over the place. We're in a museum, we're in an antique shop, we're in Vegas for a little while. There's a lot going on, but I think the fact that it's set quite often about in an antique shop. I would say that that's one of the more main settings, even though it's all over the place. I think that the conversations and the thoughtfulness about art, it just was it gives the vibes, okay? It gives like autumn vibes, and we're following Theo, and his soul is in balance. Like, is he gonna be a good guy or is he gonna be a bad guy? And I think that like a heavy-hitting chunkster about art and morality and the choices that we make in our lives and how the repercussions of that on our conscious, like on ourselves and in our consciousness and on our conscience, those are like heavy hitting questions. And I think that as I feel like summer, we're out and about, we're doing the things, we're busy often, or at least I am. Like, I'm busy, I'm getting out and about, I'm trying to soak up the sun, and all of a sudden autumn hits and you're more, at least I'm more introspective. I want to do things more at home. I want to kind of be within myself a little bit more. I might need more rest because I'm not getting as much sunshine. I've gotten quite busy because the school year has started. And I feel like this is the kind of book that you can just like sink your teeth into. And she's going to bring up these like big, entertaining, and interesting questions while also, and making making you think. And she does it in such a wonderful and dynamic way. It's such a good book. But also just like the way that she is talking about art and morality, to me, it is something about autumn. I don't know why. Maybe, am I even convincing you of this? I have no idea. I just love it, and it has vibes, like she's good at vibes, like what her characters are wearing and why they're wearing them, and descriptions of their behaviors and their mannerisms. And I don't know, there's just something about her writing that just brings up, it's like, it hits the fall button in my brain. Okay, let's see if I can do better with these next ones. All right, vibes. Okay, Susanna Clarke's Piranesi. Piranesi is definitely, it's all about the vibes. It is all about the setting. Truly, it is set in a place that feels very vast and very endless and very mysterious, and it's confusing, but for good reason. Not confusing that you don't understand what's going on, but confusing because it's intentional. You find out why, but it also has just distinct sort of it's vibes, big time vibes. Okay, setting, statues, vast houses, curiosity, wondering. It's all very autumnal to me. And it has a really great twist at the end. This is a fantasy novel, and just go in it and see what it's like. But it is, to me, very fall. Next up, I have Learned by Heart, and this is by Emma Donoghue. We are following Eliza Rain and Anne Lister in their young years at the Manor School for Girls, and it's about their friendship and what their friendship develops into. If you know anything about Anne Lister, it's pretty easy to sort of figure that out, and that's giving nothing away, truly. It's so good. And why this is autumnal to me is because it's the setting of a school. We're at the Manor School for Girls, and it's all about the rules and the education and being in class and dealing with being in class and learning, and it's even called Learned by Heart. And on top of that, it just has, like, we go through the autumn and winter, well, and the spring. I mean, we go through the seasons with the girls, but when we meet them, it feels very autumnal, and that things are cold, and and so I just love that. And I think that the setting of a boarding school, and following these young women around as they're trying to keep themselves entertained. And I did a whole review on this, so I'm going to actually leave that linked down below if I remember. But this is it's fantastic, and it is definitely giving autumn vibes, especially if you're somebody who associates the academic school year with autumn. You will probably really enjoy this. Next up, the book that probably could go into all the categories. It's a bit of a mystery. It is vibes, like straight up autumnal vibes, and it is horror or thriller-ishness, and that is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is like vibes times 10. Daphne du Maurier, she is all about writing a great setting, and it has, like, the setting is a character in her novels 100%. So here we're at this massive house called Manderley. I mean, it has its own name, and a nameless protagonist. We're in her head, she's telling the story. She has just married Mr. De Winter, and she is wondering what happened to his previous wife, who doesn't seem like a very nice person, to say the least. Like, she sounds kind of scary. And so the new Mrs. De Winter who's telling the story is both like trying to figure out what happened to the previous Mrs. De Winter, and like a bunch of stuff happens. And again, it's sort of like it's mystery, like light, like I wouldn't even say it's horror, but some of the things that happen, it's just like a little bit like, oh, that was quite evil. That was evil. What I love about this book is that it has just an incredible setting. Like if you are somebody who just loves a great setting and it's just got its own big personality, you will love Rebecca. It's so good. It's Manderley. Since Rebecca is a mystery novel, I'll continue on the mystery novel train. So the next book is going to be In the Woods by Tana French. This is the first book in the Dublin Murder Squad series. We have a pair, Rob and Cassie, who are off to investigate a 12-year-old girl's murder. The hitch is this. Rob went missing for a little while, and the girl who was murdered is found near the place for which Rob went missing when he was a young person. And so it brings up a lot of what's going on in his childhood, and like the darkness that he carries with him and those experiences that he can't remember, and like what's going on with him. And so as he's working on his inner self, as he's figuring out this mystery, you know, it's got that, both of those elements in it. And what I'm a character driven reader, and so as much as I love a good plot from time to time, I mean, I do like a good plot. I do. But what I loved about Tana French's In the Woods is that it's so much more than just a mystery. It's about the internal life of her main characters. And from what I've heard, if you continue the series forward, I have not read The Likeness. I started it and I didn't finish it. I think that was a me thing. I was just a very different reader back then. But from what I've gathered, each book focuses on a different person in the Dublin Murder Squad. And it's more about the way that the mystery that they're trying to solve interacts with the person she's focusing on, with their inner life, and with what that being on that case is doing to them and their in their person. And of course, you know, she's really good at tying it all, at least in the Woods, she was really good at tying it all together and like unlocking something about the character that you tend to really love, about what was going on with him, and like the mystery, again, that's more inside of him rather than the actual mystery that's unfolding in the novel, if that makes any sense. So I would say In the Woods, great book, just beautiful writing, just beautiful. And then the next I would recommend is Elizabeth George, A Great Deliverance. Boy, she writes a great literary mystery. You know, just there's these great references. Give me a moment, I'm gonna shut my door. All right, that's better. So Elizabeth George, she writes novels. She's an American author, but she writes a novel set in England, and we follow, it's called the Inspector Lindley series. And so we follow Thomas Lindley and Barbara Havers. And Lindley and Havers are complete opposites. Like, Lindley is like quiet and introspective, and oh gosh, he's handsome as all get out, like very handsome guy, and smart, raised upper middle class or upper class in England, comes from wealth, and has just a beautiful, neat background, you know, like tidied up. Barbara Havers is a hot mess. She was not raised, you know, upper class. She is very much like struggling to get by, and she has like a really messy home life, and her emotions hang on her sleeve, and she tends to get emotional when she is in these investigations with Lindley, and they get paired up, and they're just a great pair. And on top of that, Elizabeth George writes a really great mystery. Just a lot of twists and turns, but I think ultimately she doesn't forget about her main characters, and you get to know them a little bit more. I've been told to read the books in series in order, so I've read 2. I really need to get to a third one. And for me, mysteries are just so autumnal. Like, cozying up with a good mystery is just, to me, is like a marker of fall. And so I would be I would be so upset if I missed recommending some mysteries to you all. So Elizabeth George is a great one. Finally, for a little bit of horror, or horror, yeah, I'll do, it's they're horror-ish, kind of. Again, I'm a scaredy cat, so they're not quite horror, but they have horrific elements in them. And I'm gonna go from least horrific to most horrific, according to me, which is pretty mild. So the first one is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which is so great. I read this last year. Victor Frankenstein is a character I could slap across the face, and I am a not violent person in the least. And so he's just terrible, but he is really interested in being a god, creating life. And yeah, so it's very different. If you think you know the story of Frankenstein, like if you were like me, I thought I knew the story of Frankenstein. I was sure that I knew it. I was sure that like it was something that I was very familiar with, and that this book would not surprise me. And then I read it, and it was very surprising in a lot of ways. And the format, like the way the story was written, is one of the surprising elements about it. And the middle of the book is my favorite. It really stands out as just gorgeous writing. And it is, again, about the vibes, you know. I think she wrote in the Regency period, coming up on the Victorian period, though I think this is a Regency era book. But regardless, so the writing, you know, it can be described as flowery, or a little bit overwritten, but I like that. And I think that those vibes are what add to fall and add to that kind of feeling of fall, because we're, you know, steeped in a setting that is, you know, maybe a little bit gothic and a little bit mysterious. And I think that just adds to the autumnal feeling of the read. So yeah, Frankenstein, my first horror book. My second one would be The Trees by Percival Everett. I read this last year and it was amazing. It was so good. It's so sharp. It's got such great witty banter. The plot is dark though. It's dark. We are in Money, Mississippi, investigating a couple of murders that are incredibly unusual and super brutal. Super good book though. I mean, really good. And it's really short chapters. It's got like a lightning fast pacing, which usually I would not really care for, but it works so well in this book. I mean, it's so good. It's also just one of my favorite books of all time. I love this book so much. I love it so much. So, you know, The Trees by Percival Everett. So good. Oh, and then finally, my most horrific book, which I don't have in front of me. I was like, I had to write down a list. That's just how things have been going lately. I need a list to keep myself on track for so much these days. So, my last book is my best friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, which is set in Charleston, South Carolina. I live close to Charleston, but it truly is a horror novel. A young lady is possessed you start off with these young girls becoming friends. They're not friends, and you watch them become friends. And you really kind of, it's so good. Best friends. And one of the girls gets possessed, you know. And of course, her best friend knows that she's possessed because it's her best friend, you know. And everyone else is like, no, she's fine. She's just acting a little strange. And it really is an ode, a love letter, a beautiful story of female friendship. I mean, really good, really, really good. So, and it's definitely horror, you know, possessed by the devil, stuff happens. Whew. Really good. I read that not long ago and I just loved it. It would be perfect for the autumn. What season are we in? I have no idea. I read it in the summer and it was great. I'm sure it would even be better in the autumn. So yeah, that is it. Give me all of your autumnal recommendations down below. I would love to hear what books are definitively autumnal for you and why. Why autumnal? Like what? So for a girl that, you know, defines herself as not like an autumn woman, I'm just not. But you know, it's cool. It doesn't mean I don't like the season. I love the season. I just, the marker, the what the internet says I should be looking forward to, I just take in stride. Probably because sometimes autumn doesn't get here until like December 30th, truly. Or the autumn weather, you know, here. So anyways, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all in my next one. Bye.